Does creatine make you swell? Let's look at the research. In this article, Common Questions and Misconceptions of Creatine Supplementation, What Does the Scientific Evidence Really Show? And this is from 2021. So first off, let's start with what the researched creatine supplementation, the dose generally is. And so the evidence-based research, the creatine supplementation that is relatively well tolerated, and the recommended dose is 3 to 5 grams per day or 0.1 gram per kilogram of body mass. So generally I'm telling my ladies 5 grams of creatine a day. So if you think 5 is too much, have you tried 3? The other thing that I think of is, are you consuming too much water, and do you have enough electrolytes? Because that's a thing if you have too much water. But in the article, does creatine lead to water retention? The proposed myth of creatine supplementation increasing body water is likely due to early research that showed that creatine supplementation at 20 grams per day for 6 days was associated with water retention. It does appear that the common and adverse effect of creatine supplementation is water retention in the early stages, the first several days. For example, studies have shown that 3 days of creatine supplementation increased body water and extracellular body water and intracellular water. Unfortunately, based on those short-term responses, this notion of creatine increasing water retention over long term has been widely accepted. Creatine is an osmotically active substance. Thus, it increases the body's creatine content could theoretically result in increased water retention. Now keep in mind, the creatine is going to go into the muscles, and let's say you go on vacation and you stop taking creatine for a month, that creatine is still going to be there. So it's kind of a buildup. Creatine is taken into the muscle from circulation by a sodium dependent creatine transporter. Since the transporter involves sodium, water will also be taken up to help maintain the intracellular osmolarity. And so you see how creatine does have this water bestie. However, considering the activity of the sodium-potassium pumps, it is not likely that the intracellular sodium concentration is dramatically affected by creatine supplementation. Now, this article does not talk about this, but in our land of knowledge of electrolytes, electrolytes equal electricity is what I tell my patients. It helps with all these processes, right? So you're consuming a high level of water, but are you consuming enough of the other electrolytes? And that is always one of my questions for my patients, especially if they're having headaches or migraines. Did you take your electrolytes? Was it a real bad day? Did you take 2 packets of electrolytes? Now keep in mind, each person is different, but I even have some people who have a sodium potassium pump issue and they swell up when they are inflamed or if they're having a histamine reaction. The moral of the story is each person is exceptionally different, and there are some generalizations we can make, such as 3 to 5 grams of creatine is the safe low dose, and creatine has a very safe profile, not unlike protein. Now continuing on, a number of exercise training studies, 5 to 10 weeks, incorporated creatine supplementation have shown no increases in total body water. So if your body is reacting, is the dose too high? How many days were you on it? Did you take your electrolytes? Those were my questions. And this article summarizes it, and it says, while there is some evidence that creatine supplementation can increase water retention, primarily this is attributed to the increase in intracellular volume over the short term, and there are several other studies suggesting it does not alter total body water relative to muscle mass over long periods. As a result, creatine supplementation may not lead to water retention. Hope that helps.